we've got to hold at the same time, not clinging too deeply to what was and not changing without a direction.
Leaders, including myself, are being forced to unlearn the way we've always done things. And it's not just relearning, it's unlearning. That's actually a little bit harder than relearning, and it takes a lot of humility.
We hear all the time that companies are saying, go AI first, I want AI everywhere. And I see leaders and teams saying, what does that mean?
Has AI changed how you think about your own leadership strengths and blind spots?
Yes.
Yes, 100%.
Welcome to Fearless Thinkers, the BTS podcast. I'm your host, Rick Cheatham, and today I've got two great guests, Nicole and Victor Steeb. They live kind of at that amazing intersection, especially for this time right now, where we're looking at leadership in an AI world. So Nicole, Victor, welcome.
Thanks, Rick. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm very happy.
Great. Well, we're starting off today with something that I call the Fast Five. So rules are simple. I'm going to ask you 5 questions. I expect each one of you to respond, when possible, with one word, when not possible, with one word, in one sentence max. Does that work?
It's generous. Yeah.
Yes.
Generous. Yeah, well, I'm a caring guy by nature. All right, let's go. So what is a leadership skill that is become more important in an AI world?
Creativity.
Discernment.
And how has AI changed how you think about your own leadership strengths and blind spots?
Yes.
Yes, 100%.
I wasn't expecting a no, but I figured I'd at least ask. And then tell me about a time that you've maybe deliberately kept something as uniquely human and it could have been done by AI.
Constructing feedback.
I'm a coach, and so I keep that 100% human.
Great. And then is leadership significantly different than it was about 2 years ago?
I would say yes, but I think that the fundamentals are still really core to how a leader shows up.
Yes and no. So I agree with Victor. Yeah.
Very consulting answer. So what's a big way that AI helps you make better decisions?
I use AI to help me challenge my assumptions a lot, and that's very helpful. Holds me accountable.
Yeah. I think similar, but I would say just with the sheer amount of synthesizing of data that I have to do, it really helps me get clear on the answers and the patterns.
Great. This is the last one. It's toughy. We get to work with some of the smartest people in the world, some of the most successful companies. Are you more concerned for those that are moving too fast with AI or those that are moving too slow?
I'd say too fast.
Oh, I'd say too slow.
Oh, all right. Now we're to the meat of it. Let's go. Let's go. All right. Victor, why do you say too fast?
I think maybe it's a bit of a cop-out, but I would say I'm worried about people moving too fast to just using AI. I want them to slow down and make sure, do they actually know where they're headed? Are they actually thinking about, what the outcomes are going to be before just diving in? And so when I say moving too fast, I don't want them just to be, using AI systems or their tools or agents to just do the work for them. I want them to actually still hold on to those core pieces. And especially as a leader, you need to know, what is that human elements that you're holding on to? So you need to set that up so that you can then, once you have your goal in mind, you can move fast as a team.
Makes sense. And what about you, Nicole? Why too slow?
I just have concern for both companies and leaders being disrupted by not moving. And basically the risk that comes along with that around relevance and creating new value. And what's interesting about this too is, by the way, Victor is way more progressive at AI than I am. And so he's concerned with moving too fast. I'm concerned about moving too slow. And so there could be some of our own experiences that means we're all handling this very differently and at different points in our understanding of it. And then Victor, your comment on discernment, and Ryan, your creativity. It really, I don't know that there really is a right answer to it, but I do think not moving and not learning is a big risk.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to hear the balance I would hear between what both of you are saying is we've got to hold at the same time not clinging too deeply to what was and not changing without a direction, like not sprinting and without knowing where you're going. Am I getting it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, Rick, what are you experiencing for yourself and for your clients?
Gosh, it had, we got too fast, too slow. How about just right? No, I think the thing that organizations are doing, in my experience, really well and fast is actually helping people develop superpowers. So, me being able to do things that I couldn't do by myself before, or that would have taken 5 handoffs to get done, I think that is should be moving as fast as it can through every organization. The too fast though side of it is, how many stories have we all seen of company X laying off X number of, X hundreds or thousands of people even, and then finding out that, oh, whoops, actually the app or the agent we built doesn't work like we thought it would, and we're going to have to hire people back. So obviously that is the most extreme too fast. But when I think about it in individual ways of working and allowing people to experiment and learn, I think companies can't do that fast enough. Pushing the reset button without having clear purpose and direction is, every time I hear about it, it makes my teeth hurt. Scares me to death.
I appreciate that, Rick. And I also think that there's that layer around, yes, you need to move fast as a company, but also how are you going to make sure that you're actually moving fast on the right areas? And I think that, we hear all the time that companies are saying, go AI first, I want AI everywhere. And I see leaders and teams saying, what does that mean? Does that mean using, my LLM to help me write emails? Does that mean, going there first to really push any project forward? And that's why I really brought in discernment. I think is the big piece that I see, is especially for leaders, is when you hear that, where do you actually want to implement shifts? Where are areas that is going to really alleviate pains for your team, make them work better, smarter together? But also think about, well, what is still truly going to be human led? And I love, Nicole, that you mentioned, feedback. I 100% agree with you. That should be human centered. That should be a conversation. And I think that kind of discernment is what's going to help companies work at that speed that they need to.
Absolutely. And I think, Victor, you said it well earlier too. There's so many things that will stay the same, so many things that will change. And we're seeing a lot of this. We're experiencing it for ourselves at BTS every single day as well, right? There's not an answer. Yeah. It's a constant learning process. I think there's really kind of 3 key things that we're seeing. Is one is leaders, including myself, are trying to, or being forced to, unlearn the way we've always done things. And it's not just relearning, it's unlearning. That's actually a little bit harder than relearning. And it takes a lot of humility, a lot of demonstration of being creative, being willing to take risks in the right ways, in the ways that the organization can tolerate, Victor, to your point, or is willing to tolerate. But it also takes holding on to the thinking and the processing and the strategic nature of creating value that's so important for organizations to have in order to differentiate when AI has lots of knowledge, and knowledge is more shared than it ever has been before. So that's a real shift of we want to lean into the knowledge still, but it's more about the way we think rather than what we know. That's key.
And I guess I want to go deeper into both of those in different ways because, just again, thinking of myself, one of my superpowers I always felt like was, okay, I can take different pieces of information and find the patterns in that information and help people see a potential path forward. And now that there's a tool out there that can do it 5 times faster with 5 times or with a million times more information. It's had me sit back in my chair and say, okay, wait a minute. If this was my superpower, if this is how I add the most value to not only people in my professional life, but even people in my personal life, then
Mm-hmm.
I'm losing part of my identity. So I guess, Nicole, to go deeper into something you said about, unlearning things, it's actually, I think sometimes people are going, wait a minute, if I'm not that, who am I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, to a certain extent, I mean, I appreciate that you're both like so quick to say, yeah, but I mean, what does that mean for organizations? What does it mean for those of us that are trying to get, who have responsibility not only for ourselves and how we show up as leaders, but for inspiring teams and helping them move forward?
I mean, one of the questions, Rick, that comes to my mind, like for your circumstance, we just take you for a moment here and dive a little bit deeper.
One rat study.
That's right. Is how might you separate the task from the value that you add to the task?
Mm.
Can you think about that work in a slightly different dimension and then lean more clearly into I spend my time with the value I add to it versus the task itself?
That actually makes a ton of sense. So if I were to say that back, it isn't that I've necessarily lost my superpower. It's how could I potentially create more value with the things that are uniquely me?
Yeah. Victor, how does that land with you?
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking kind of a similar shift approach to that, that's your superpower. That's what you're known for. You could say it's like your expertise, right? And what I think what we're saying is that, and what we see a lot of times is that leaders that show up really well using AI and to help them are shifting from leaning on this is my expertise, this is what I'm known for, and moving toward this is how I explore with that power. And so I think that you even said that, you're using it to expand that potential. And I think that not only using it on your own work and how you think about things, but then demonstrating that to the people you work with and the teams is going to help them upskill and see where their expertise are also being expanded. And I think that opportunity to really demonstrate that is one of the key pieces that AI really helps us, reform what it is to be a leader, not just leading because of what knowledge you have, but being able to demonstrate how you got to the right question or the right framing or how you pushed, what the output was because you have this idea of where and you think it can go.
And Victor, you bring up a really important point of this Rick, the question that you asked with a lot of vulnerability is one that most people are asking or are afraid to ask, right? And leaders are not only asking this for themselves, but they also have to help their teammates answer it. And that goes back, Victor, to what you said earlier, core coaching. It goes back to purpose. It goes back to value creation. And that part of leadership is always been important. And it just continues to get amplified in terms of it being more important than ever before. And that's the thing. I don't know. I reflect on my own experience. I think I need to be more vulnerable about what I know and what I don't and how I'm rethinking my role and also ask and check in with others.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's such a hard thing to do is to take those moments of reflection and ask others, how are you doing? What are you doing? What do you think about the way that you and I should interact together or how we proceed? Victor, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, it kind of brings me back to the point that you asked at the beginning around, and my thought that we need to actually slow down is by leaders being able to demonstrate, show what they're doing, it can feel that they're slowing down the process of work. But in reality, what they're doing is they're demonstrating what the skill is and where their team can really go and how they can support each other. And that, I think, is the key that's going to unlock the speed that so many organizations want to work at.
It's the systems part of it, Victor, too, right? So many people are working with AI with themselves in AI or even with teams in AI, but
Yeah.
how are we actually leveraging it at the organizational level? How are we driving continuous alignment? Victor, you and I talk about this, is how do we align at the speed of AI or even ahead of AI? A huge question that has to be answered, right? And AI can maybe answer that for us, who knows? But AI is going to answer that for us if humans actually are the ones to create that possibility in the first place.
Yeah.
That makes good sense. So I actually want to stick with this kind of identity thing for a little bit more, not just about me, because it doesn't have to be all about me, but for, I always think about most leaders in most organizations. You both know that I spend most of my time with commercial teams where you tend to rise in the ranks. So much of what makes a great leader is being able to do it better than my direct reports myself. And one thing that I think pops up for some leaders right now is, oh, wait, this relatively new person on my team is better at this than I am. And so I'm wondering, have you seen that? Because that tends to be a assumption that most organizations make, even if they don't want to say it out loud, is the leader should be better at doing the job than the people doing the job. And so first, maybe you disagree with that whole concept, but then second, how do we cope with that as leaders if we're not better at it than our team?
Victor, I'll be real vulnerable here, but Victor is the person who does it, who knows more than I do, who does it faster than I do, who does it better than I do on my team. And Victor probably gets to hear me say a lot of help me or catch me up or I feel behind, because we have the relationship where I can say that. And I probably think it more than I even tell Victor. But the other thing I don't tell Victor that I probably should, which is how I'm just helping myself through this, is as Victor is flying and doing things that Victor can uniquely do in comparison to where I'm at, what else can I say yes to taking on or doing because Victor is flying? And it's hard to ask that question, but I find asking myself that question very helpful to help create new relevance in new ways and new areas, and to capture the brilliance that is Victor. So that is how I navigate, but it's not a linear road. And I have moments. Victor knows I called the other day saying I was mad at my wonderful AI tool, and he's like, "Are you getting on yet?" So it's
maybe
great
want to grab a cup of coffee.
That's right. I mean, Victor, how do you experience it?
Yeah, no, Nicole, thank you for the vulnerability and sharing that. I think that what I can say is a report to someone that is vulnerable in this way and representing that, it does let me feel like I can take on more and share and really, experience like where this can really take us. It lets me have the freedom then to dream and bring to Nicole great ideas that she can, challenge me on. And I think that's like part of that human element as well, is that we still can have that back and forth and recognize that even though AI might be giving, us the leveling the playing field, or in some ways, letting intelligence, as we call it, information just be there at our fingertips, we don't lose track of that human element of how do we actually support each other and build each other up. And that then lets us continue to move at light speed, it feels like. See places where there might be brand new opportunities that we've never done before. And I think that that's where I am right now, is I'm able to actually think in that way because Nicole is vulnerable enough to say, this is where I'm willing to explore, not leaning on her expertise. And I think that has let myself and the team really be able to explore with her where we can go with AI.
Well, and it actually brings home to me a thing that I've always so strongly believed, which is I'm looking for people that can make our entire team better. I used to always say, I'm not trying to hire more me, I'm trying to hire the super friends. Yeah. If I'm Aquaman, we don't need everybody being Aquaman, because if we're away from the water, it's going to be a hard day.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't necessarily thinking about it in that context, but when I do, it's like it goes from a thing that maybe was a little bit scary to me before to a thing that actually makes a lot of sense and is a little bit more to my core, which makes me think about something else. And that is, what are some either leadership qualities or perspectives, even that you think people aren't necessarily thinking about in an AI world that actually probably really have served them well and that they should be bringing in to this time of change and uncertainty for so many organizations?
Yeah. I mean, I can speak from experience. One of the things that I didn't realize starting working with AI systems and agents was that ability to look ahead and see where we might be going with a project, and allowing myself to zoom out to the 2,000-foot level to say, where do we want to go? And then push us past that point. That's something that I've always seen in my work and how I approach projects is, Rick, going back to your word, my superpower. And I now see that ability lets me start a conversation, start a prompt, right? If I'm using my LLM or my agent, to really, I get clear really quickly early on, so that when it starts to deliver, information or product, I can say, you're on the right track. I can use it to really tweak it and really have that back and forth then to expand even what that possibility that I was seeing is. But it wouldn't be possible without me actually having that ability and spending that upfront time to get clear on where I think that we can go, and then letting the possibility take me forward.
Cool. How about you, Nicole?
I will echo everything that Victor said and just add a couple of things. I mean, I think we're starting to talk about them, and these are things that are not new but become more helpful. Is vulnerability. It is curiosity. It is trusting your team, but validating along the way, because there is a lot more that can be done in a black box, if you will, that might cause more risk than reward, or might be less competitive, or might be more legally challenging. So there's a lot more that we have to do around validation and checking and supporting and checking in more frequently as things move faster, rather than just at the end of the outcome. And then the other thing I just want to bring to the surface is a conversation around risk. And we talk about the big R and we talk about the small R, the capital R and the small r. And there's a lot more small r that actually needs to happen to be able to capture the value of this. And so I think leaders really have to focus on defining the risks we want, the ones we want to tolerate, the ones we want to learn from versus the ones we don't, because I think we still get a little bit stagnant in don't take risk. Risk isn't good. The question you have to ask is, what risk do we want? And that's actually a reward versus what risk can we not tolerate? So those are all things that kind of stand out to me, that are just still always have been and continue to be important.
Yeah, and I think that it's funny to me because I think that is one of those things that is both so exciting about the time that we're in and so challenging about the time that we're in, because when major shifts like this happened before, there were teams of people, there were swim lanes, there were days spent in windowless conference rooms to arrive at something that we're going to test and slowly change. But even to where I think people need to move fast, it's figuring out where that window of risk that you're willing to tolerate and setting your people free.
Yeah.
And letting them explore and feel empowered instead of terrified that AI's coming for their job.
And celebrating the learnings, right, that come from it, and scaling the learnings. Celebrating and scaling the learnings is so key.
Yeah. Opening the opportunities for team members to really explore and discover new things that even the leader can't even predict where they're going to go. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, hey, as always, it seems in this crazy world, there's absolutely never enough time. I love just starting to chat with you a little bit on this, but what I'd really love even more, and I'm sure our audience would greatly appreciate, is if you wouldn't mind coming back maybe in a slightly more structured format and share with us some of the research that you've done and some of the client work that you're doing that solves for some of the challenges and opportunities we were just talking about today. So you mind coming back?
Anytime.
Sure.
Thanks for having us.
Sweet.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for joining us on Fearless Thinkers. We look forward to continuing the conversation with you soon.